Recently, Game Rant sat down with Owlcat's Alexander Michelin, the creative director for the Expanse Osiris Reborn, for a fairly extensive interview. He didn't reveal a lot of new details about the game itself, however, we do gain some insights into how the studio is approaching this project. Because a cinematic, fully voiced third-person action RPG is a fairly large departure from what the studio has worked on in the past. Michelin acknowledges that this is a new experience for them. They already knew how to write stories with consequences, so the tools and processes they used on their other franchises could be almost directly transferred to Osiris Reborn. But combat and exploration in a third-person action RPG is something that was completely new to them. He says they spent almost all of 2021 prototyping and experimenting with combat and exploration, how it feels, how it plays, before they finally felt like they understood what they were making. They also went out and hired people with experience with third-person action games, and he specifically mentions people from CD Projekt. So if you've been a little worried about a studio known for its isometric turn-based CRPGs making a third-person action game, well, maybe this will set your mind at ease, because it looks like they're making a good faith effort to make the game experience a good one. Speaking about changes to the gaming experience, all those systems that Owlcat Games are known for, and I'm talking about kingdom management, colony management, and space combat, well, those won't be making a reappearance in Osiris Reborn. Michelin says that this time around they are more focused on story and characters. He says that in their previous games they used these systems like colonization or kingdom management and space combat to put the companions and characters in different kinds of situations than you would normally see them in, to essentially flesh out the characters a little more. But he says in Osiris Reborn, they won't need to do this because your companions will always be in contact with you. They will always be giving their opinions on things or giving you information, so they won't need these extra systems to help flesh them out. Which is good news for us here at the Outpost, because we're not very good at those kinds of things. But if you're bummed out about it, please let us know in the comments. Now turning to character builds and gameplay, Michelin says that they want this game to be more accessible, which I'm sure is going to raise some red flags with a lot of people out there. But as a third-person action RPG, they want to focus more on playstyle, so there are no classes. Instead, you'll focus on building your character around a playstyle. The example he gave was that you find a great gun that shoots slowly, but it has great armor penetration. You then find a helmet that allows you to see through smoke and walls. You can use this gun to then shoot enemies through walls, and you might want to build your character around that kind of playstyle. But if you're not into gunplay, he says, you can build your character around other abilities. He doesn't give any examples of those. Or you might want to build more a support character who, while maybe doesn't go on the front lines themselves, but specializes in helping their companions get through the fight. And talking a little more about companions, while we didn't get any more information on who and how many, except that our twin will be our first companion, we do learn that our companions will be busy while we're out on a mission. So while we may take a couple of companions with us, the ones we don't pick aren't simply going to be playing cards back on the ship. Some might stay on the ship, but they'll be giving us information or helping out with the ship in some way, or they might actually form a second team and work on objectives alongside of us, or maybe they'll work on their own objectives. Now, Michelin didn't mention whether we had a choice on who goes where and what objectives we do and what objectives they do, or if it's just something that happens. And as far as the companions going off and doing their own missions, he doesn't mention whether this will happen only if we decide we're not going to do it or we don't get around to it in a certain amount of time, or if it's just something that they're going to always do on their own. He does mention that we'll have an opportunity to help our companions with their problems or not, but he doesn't say whether helping them involves going off and doing quests with them. He does reiterate that there will be companion romances, but again, he doesn't say with whom or how many. He also mentions that the ship is a very important place and we'll have a lot of interactions with our companions there. And as a side note, he does mention that we will have a little bit of ship customization and that our ship will be Expanse lore accurate, in meaning that compartments will be where you expect them to be based on what we've seen in the Expanse. And as a result, it will be a little more physically realistic than we might be used to from other sci-fi franchises. But at the same time, they're not going overboard with realism. They do want to make sure the game is grounded in reality and shares the dark and gritty atmosphere that we've come to expect from the Expanse, but they'll play fast and loose with realism when they need to. An example that I think they've given before is sound in space. While they acknowledge that there might not really be sound in space, from an artistic and player feedback perspective, it's kind of necessary. Without it, it's just confusing, according to Michelin. As an example, he said that during zero-G combat, you won't be hearing gunshots as you would normally hear them, but you will be hearing muffled approximations of gunshots so that you can get a sense of what's going on. And while you might have to worry about things like decompression in case your ship gets hit with a weapon, he said they don't want to focus exclusively on the dangerous parts of space travel. Instead, he says they also want to focus on the cool parts of physics and the cool, fun parts of space travel. Likewise, he says that while the Expanse shows a lot of tragedy, and the game will have a lot of tragedy as well, they also want to show people who have succeeded at what they want to do. And they want to be realistic when it comes to people too, so they want to show a wide range of emotions and situations. And this extends to things like how background affects the way people treat our characters. For example, he says that in the beginning of the game, our background will have a large influence on the way people treat us. But over time, our characters will become more defined by their choices and actions. He gives an example of a character that he was playing that was from Mars, so initially the Belters treated him with hostility, but over the course of the game, as he sided more and more with the Belters, they begin to be more welcoming to him, which he notes is also in keeping with how things work in the Expanse books and TV show. And speaking of the wider franchise, he says that the game will take place during the first 2 books or during the first 2.5 seasons of the TV show. He also says that we will be seeing some familiar faces from the TV show and the books, though he doesn't say who, but he does say that we might see them in some different situations than we have seen them in the past, as this game is not a retelling of the books and the TV show. However, the events of the book and the TV show will have a large impact on what we experience in the game. For example, we start the game on Eros, and we will be running into one of the test subjects from Project Caliban. If you're not familiar with the Expanse, these are people who have been exposed to the proto-molecule, which is a substance that pretty much corrupts and destroys everything that it touches. So these creatures are very deadly and very difficult to defeat. And that's going to be the encounter that kickstarts the game. Oh goody! He also notes that where the proto-molecule is, there is also protogen, and they will be an antagonist for our characters. And as they previously revealed, we will also be visiting Ceres, and traveling throughout the solar system. But in case you're worried they'll get all this wrong, he says they have a good working relationship with Alcon, the people who hold the rights to the Expanse, and that they've talked to them extensively about what is and is not the Expanse. So there you have it, some of the more important parts of the Game Rant interview. It was, as I mentioned, a rather extensive interview, so I will leave a link in the description so you can read the whole thing for yourself if you'd like to. And of course, let us know what you think in the comments. Does this information make you more or less excited for the game? And while you're down there, if you like this content, why not like and subscribe? As always, thanks for watching.